All right, so we have present, Earl, Mark Prouty, our wonderful scribe, Sharon, Austin, Bob Heffernan, and who is this guy, Tim Ritzer?
Yeah.
So, and myself.
Whitey Bollinger.
And it looks like we have no one online, so we're missing, listing,
Donna Sumner.
yeah, Donna, Sumner, and Daphne. So before we get started, hot off the press news, what this Hans is retiring.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
I knew it.
Oh, yes.
Huh?
Not
you
like
know?
I knew it. Did he call you ahead of time?
No, I just pulled that. I think it was posted yesterday.
And
That's on
they've
the county's
already
website.
extended an offer to someone.
Lost it.
Yeah.
It better not be. To who?
Who is retiring? I'm sorry. I missed that.
Hans.
Oh, is he?
Yes,
Oh, my.
yes.
It wasn't that long ago that he said that he was signed up for to see this through, right?
Yeah.
Duration,
right. Right. So we, it kind of,
Is that effective immediately?
no, it says early in 2024. Doesn't have a date.
May.
I think it's gonna depend on who the other person is.
Yeah, how quickly they can come up to speed.
Yeah,
Does he have an assistant that may step to his?
I don't-
you're aware of?
I don't think to a degree that it's like
She's gonna buy this.
I think there's people that work
Is it Berkeley?
alongside him. I just don't know to the degree of knowledge that they have compared to Hans. I think the plan was that Hans would stay on, work through however long it would need for the new engineer. And then I think his plan was the potential of working like as a part-time.
Consultant, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know how it works, like with Delaware, there's a certain amount of hours that you can work as a like a retiree that comes back as a consultant. So
Well, if it's anything like council service, there's no limit to the number of hours that.
Well, when I retired and came part-time, I was limited to average of 20 hours a week.
Right.
Okay, so that's the news. So that kind of,
Wow.
may change some of the dynamics of whatever's happening with the county. And I thought it's something the committee should be aware of. Second, there are some handouts that I think we'll be discussing during the meeting, but one is the list of the Aqua Narita customers and how far along they are in the process right now. And this is asked to be confidential just for the committee.
Thank you. Are you collecting
It's
these
confidential.
applications?
No,
we talked about that.
Confidential. I need your word.
yes.
Where would you like?
The second one is a diagram of where Aqua Narita would put, or Aqua Aerobic systems would put an SBR system on our existing site. And it shows, and that's not including all the stuff like the digester that they sent us in their original pre-design or preliminary design summary. This is just the 2 tanks for SBR, and it shows how much larger they are if you want to refer to the diagram they sent us about the Aqua Narita tanks.
Just a-
Barbara, this is just the FBR.
This is just the SBR.
Okay.
And is this to scale?
Yes,
Excuse me, Bob.
But the Aqua Naritas were on the other page. relatively small, like
Yes,
2/3 the size or.
about half the size, yeah. You could fit them in here, on the other side of the oxidation ditch,
Anywhere, point,
in there.
okay.
In this
Yeah,
area,
yeah,
So to be clear, they're not suggesting 4 SBRs, they're
No.
suggesting one or the other.
yes,
Two.
optional locations.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Okay,
Okay, so it's not that I ever thought about this before, but
mhm.
is this site bounded? I mean, like, if you needed a little bit of marsh, could you get a couple of feet?
It was recently subdivided, so the city would have to sign off on a redelineation of the subdivision.
But they're friendly,
Yeah,
generally.
Tim would be the one signing for it, so.
Oh, yeah.
No, I mean,
I have arthritis in that.
I'm just saying, if it was do the piping this way and it cost $1 million less to do it some other way.
The city would probably collect $500,000 for the redelineation.
But
I like
The city
that,
had
a
it.
suggestion.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
okay, I
Under
appreciate
advice.
the answer.
May I ask one more question about this? With respect to the SBR, is the idea that for growth, still only one SBR would be needed to meet growth? It would not be a need for an additional?
The 2 tanks, you mean?
Yes, I
okay.
think a minute ago you confirmed that there's going to be one requirement of only one, correct?
One of these 2
One of those sets.
locations.
Oh, so it's a
A
pair.
set of,
It's a
You're buying a
pair.
pair.
Yes,
Oh, okay,
yeah, I need at least 2 to start with.
got it.
But if
Thank
we did Aqua Narita, you could do at either of those locations and it'd be about half the size.
or you could do it right next to the oxidation ditch.
Can I ask a question just for me to clarify? When you say aqua narita, he means the granule system.
Yes,
Because they're both aqua narita.
no,
right?
one is aqua aerobic.
Okay,
Aqua Aerobics.
Yeah.
Has a license for Aqua Narita,
gotcha.
as well as the SBRs.
Okay.
I think that back right hand corner is one of the lowest spots though, right? Do we have?
When you say back right hand corner, are you saying if you're,
Towards the bridge. Up here,
Towards the beach, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's one of the lowest. there is.
Well, that's where the drawing beds
Yeah,
are
that-
now, that's not too bad.
no, but that you also have the existing concrete that's there, so that's probably one of the lowest.
Okay,
The thing is, if they'd be up out of the ground, they'd be standing
Yeah.
up out of the ground anyway, you could have water all in front of you, not a problem. Matter of access.
next,
or redeploy the old swing bridge, and maybe that could be the.
As it sinks into the.
It is gonna sink.
No doubt about that.
Kathy Tatman, you said that. I don't know if you know her.
Who's this?
Kathy Tatman,
I know that, I've met her once, I don't really know her, yeah,
she was heavily involved. That's right.
yes, yeah. Anything with the train, she's involved.
Yes, right.
okay, next thing is, some correspondence, and you were sent this, forwarded that, questions I sent to Aqua Narita after our last meeting. About, why when they sent us the preliminary design for the SBR, did they include a digester system in it? And not include it in the system at for Aqua Narita, right? SBR versus AGS, which is what I should use, AGS. And their answers were interesting. They were under the impression that we were looking at the AGS for the existing site and an SBR for a new site. So, they did give us some numbers ultimately on what the digester cost, so that was helpful, 221,000, I think it was, so we could take that off of the SBR price, or we could add it on to the AGS system if we built a new facility, a greenfield site.
That's just the equipment, not the tank.
Yes, just the equipment.
blowers and air diffusers.
I did at one point ask for clarification on the aqua disc. I said, does that include the tanks? And they said, oh, yes.
Yeah.
So that's the only one that included tanks. The rest, it was just the equipment.
Yeah, like the one we saw there in Berlin with the metal tank.
Yes. Yes.
You don't get the nice plastic cover over the top to keep the midges up.
No. No, that's extra. So, and then I wanted to let the committee know at the BPW board meeting last week. I was asked for an update on the committee's activities. And I didn't know that was coming, but I did give a report, and one of the board members is still uncomfortable with the thought that this is a proven technology. And so I passed that along to the Aqua Narita people and said, this is the kind of information that I think we need to convince those who think that this is new unproven technology. And it's true that they don't have any plants that have been operating for 10 years in the US. Their oldest one is their demo facility, which started in 2018. But they've got plenty that have been operating that long elsewhere in the world. So I asked them in this email for information that I hope I'll be able to use in the report that the committee sent to the board. And Bill Laporte got back to me and said he's passing it along and he will let me know as soon as he gets feedback from the Aqua Narita people.
May I ask a question at this time, please, regarding the demo located in Rockford, Illinois? I recognize here that it under the application column is described as municipal. And my question is that actually a plant that is in use and real being used to support a municipal's function and demands, or is it just a demo location where it's used to demonstrate their equipment? In other words, is it
My
real?
understanding is it's a demo for their equipment, taking Rockford's sewage and treating it and
Yes.
giving it back.
So it is a real life, if you will, application. I mean, it's
Yeah. I mean, it's not run by the city or anything. It's,
Right.
You know, it's run by the company that is building equipment there at Rockford. And the reason I went there once and looked at the SBRs when they were brand new, many years ago. And this setup is similar to that setup, how that was, where they would peel off some sewage from the
right.
regular sewers, treat it and put the effluent back into the sewer again. And just as a proof of process.
But they probably keep that running, right?
Yes, oh yeah,
So
it's
that
ongoing. yes.
It's an
Because it'd
integral
be
part.
a hell of a mess to turn it off and then start it up when
That's-
you want to do some more testing.
Yeah, absolutely right, especially with the AGS part of it, the granular part of it, needing to be fed and
It'd
maintained.
be 3 months to get an answer from an experiment.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
I also, you'll notice in this feedback memo, I asked them about the piloting process, how that works. In case where the board is interested in moving forward with this, but has some concerns about how well the technology will work here. So I'm waiting to hear back about that. In the meantime, Mark and I got together and we put together a list of questions to ask the Whitefish folks. That's this one. And to guide our discussion today, as it starts with, as I believe you know,
Okay,
okay,
this is whitefish.
Whitefish, yeah. And Mark talked with Craig, what's this?
Workman,
Craig Workman, yeah. On Monday. And
yeah, we spoke on the telephone.
I'll turn things over to Mark right now.
Okay, I had sent him an email with a list of questions that included questions that Barbara had put together earlier in the email. And just to go down the list of the questions, we can hash them through if that's okay.
Yes, yes. that
So
was
my
fun.
first question was, what was your existing plant? Did it have influence screening? Was it a secondary type of treatment plant? Did it have tertiary treatment components? How was the sludge handled? Was it aerobically digested sludge? How was it dewatered? Was it landfilled? Was the effluent filtered? Just all the various components of his old plant. And he pointed out that the existing system was a 3-cell lagoon system, similar to the site out here at Wolf Neck, really, without the spray irrigation component. And the effluent from the 3 lagoons that the water passed through was treated with alum chemical that helps precipitate the phosphorus in the water. And it went to a clarifier, two clarifiers, and then went to stream discharge. And he noted that one of their big problems, and why the state of Montana came down on that, was they were having ammonia problems. The lagoons were not sufficiently removing ammonia, and especially in the wintertime, cold weather that affects the microorganisms. So they started looking into other processes. So the chemicals that I asked them what chemicals do they use, and alum is their major chemical for phosphorus removal. They were going to go with what's called the ichneous process, a form of a batch reactor type of system. It was a little bit more continuous flow, but the ichneous process, and then going. This is by the way, 2 million gallon per day treatment plant, and accepts up to 6 million gallons per day during the high flows during the summertime when people are up visiting that part of Montana. So it's a substantial plant, and Aquarobics came in right after they had decided on the ICEAS system. And while their equipment was more expensive, there was substantially less concrete needed to be poured, because the tanks are, as you pointed out, on our existing site compared to an SBR. So because of the geology out there, pouring concrete in that geology where they have a lot of clay subsoils is a lot trickier to get right. And so having smaller tanks made a big difference in their overall costs. The equipment itself was more expensive than the ichneous equipment, but the overall cost was substantially less.
So when you said alum is the chemical they use it with the AGS system?
Yeah, they continue to use it. Let me go on a little bit
Okay.
more about.
Okay.
They also, because of the energy savings that is expected from the AGS process, they also got a grant from local energy provider. Because there was an energy savings, and went a long way in that making the decision towards the HES as well. So their treatment plant now is a bar screen. It's a 6mm bar screen. And it's not, there's different types of screens that you've talked about. They're the type that are just a rake pulling garbage up off of a rake. And there's also a perforated drum, so the water flows in, goes through perforations in a drum, and the drum rotates, and the screenings are collected off of that. And theirs is a bar screen, which is a rake and bars that pulls the garbage off. And I bring that up because they had problems with the screen, and that caused problems with the creation of granules for the aging process. Because there was a stopping and starting to fix the screen all the time, and there wasn't a nice continuous flow to feed the growth of the granules. So
Was the screen because of ragging or?
well, I suspect it's because it just got clogged up at various flow rates, and the raking mechanism that comes down and drags the screenings up out of the water. The water passes through the screen. You rake these things up and into a bin, and it wasn't capturing sufficient amounts, so a lot of rags were getting through the screening operation. So I harp on this because it was always, when I was an operator, the biggest turmoil we had. You get a good doggone screen in front of a treatment plant, as you can attest to. And it saves you a lot of problems downstream.
Is that a matter of the rake not being properly scaled or sized to do the job correctly?
It depends on whose screen it is. That can be a problem in some screens. There's very coarse bar screens that have a big rake come down, and it's a vertical lift, and stuff falls off and it gets through. On a treatment plant like you have here, you've got several levels of screening because it's so important to get the screenings right at your treatment plant. There you have both a scraping mechanism, and you have a rotary drum screen also, if I'm not mistaken.
Two rotary drums.
Two rotary drum screens. So the water passes through the rotary drum, the screenings are lifted up out of the water, and there's a knife blade that scrapes off the screenings. And so the drum continues on. If there's anything left on the backside of that, under that break, it falls back into the water, and it's not, you lose some efficiency.
That's a problem everywhere,
Yes,
is it not? I mean,
it really is. It's something that you want to spend a lot of time and effort in getting right.
3 different headhunters that called me that run the company in Minneapolis that made those things.
Oh, really?
They didn't, I guess they had trouble filling the job.
Yeah, it's very important. Then grit removal is after that is important, because you'll just fill your tanks up with grit. The grit is small enough as sand, and it'll get through your screens, and every once in a while you have to take your tanks down and remove all the sand that's piled up in the corners. So he did not mention that he has grit removal. And I believe it's because his water goes to a big buffer tank prior to the Rita system.
So it settles out there.
Yes, yeah. So they've been online for 2 years, and I found this important. They have not reached full granulation yet.
Really?
Yes, they have got granulars, and they are meeting their effluent requirements, but it's not the full granulation that was expected. And they think it's because, one, the screen, the interruption of the operation of the screen, and gaps in the flow that enters the plant. sometimes a year, the flow is very low, midnight, there's hardly any flow, so there's no feed of water going to serve these granules to keep those bugs growing. He suspects that's the big problem, and he would recommend making sure that you have flow equalization prior to your AGS system to make sure that you have a nice continuous feed of nutrients to these microorganisms.
Shouldn't he?
Do we have that system?
Shouldn't he be getting that from the buffer
EQ
tank?
Well, apparently they don't have the buffer tank there.
Okay.
They have the sludge buffer, which is after and I asked them about that also. So they feed alum for phosphorus removal, but they get a lot of phosphorus removal by the biological system, so they don't have a very high alum feed necessary. Their effluent goes to what were originally their activated sludge storage ponds. So it goes into a pond and they can deal with it further as necessary. If it's not meeting requirements, they can circle it back. They can add the alum to get the phosphorus out and before they're discharged. But he says the treatment plant's working very, very, very well. But it does have this situation where the granules not forming all the way. And of course, that's been one of our big concerns here is how do we get it to start, you know? That's it. And I think that's why Aqua Aerobics wanted to have, if it were what they call the greenfield site, you know, a new site, they would use SBRs because they wouldn't be able to get the granulation going in time to meet your effluent requirements right away. If you're at your existing site, you continue running your existing treatment plant and you just peel off some flow to get it going. So granules, then you stop your existing site and make whatever demolitions that you do.
Did he say how big the granules are? I mean,
Not,
up on the radar keeps saying 200 microns, which is a little less than 1,000th of an inch.
right, and no, he didn't say, he said that he has granules, but they're not the full size that is expected, and it's been a couple of years.
100th of an inch.
Does that concern you?
It does. It's always been my concern is how to get it started. You know, and I can see it's a very easy fix if you're at an existing site. But if we're talking about a contingency site somewhere else, then you have this problem of giving it water and the water not being sufficiently treated to be discharged for several months. He did say that in the 2 to 3 months window that they started, they did reach their effluent requirements. But of course, they had these big ponds that was the original treatment plant. So they put the water in those ponds and didn't discharge it until it met criteria. So then the sludge that is discharged from the AGS system goes into an aerated sludge storage pond. And if you were to look at the site plan on Google Maps or something, you can see this dark pond with a bunch of aeration lines in it. And so they just put the sludge in there and they let it cook and digest it under aerobic conditions. And then they take it and put it into another pond, which was a pond, but now is a big sludge drying beds. And they just let it dry. Of course, they live with only 20 inches of water a year is precipitation out there. So drying a sludge drying bed is a lot easier for them.
Figured it would be easy to find a thing.
The big, are you looking at a map of it?
Yeah.
The big silver covered tank there is a clear.
Can you pull that up on the monitor for us?
Just do Whitefish, Montana.
Doing that, I'll tell you that one of the I asked him about operators and operations. And the first thing out of his mouth was how great aqua aerobics has been in taking training, being there, if there's some sort of questions coming out. Very, very satisfied. He couldn't speak highly enough of them. So, and that had been my history with aqua aerobics also, when I dealt with them. They're a pretty class act.
Do they talk to the same person every time? Do you know?
I don't know. He did mention a guy's name, so maybe,
Maybe.
So
They had a
Paula
webinar last week. They had a webinar last week that I went to, and I asked whether there was a contractual arrangement afterwards or not, you know, and their answer, maybe, were you there? They basically said, no, we're committed to this technology. We don't have an after sales contract. And for phone support, we're 24/7 and we'll answer the phone. And I specifically said, you know, Paula acts like she knows all these people. And they said, well, she does, but she's not charging them for any,
Yeah,
yeah,
any.
that's consistent with my history with them. When I started using their equipment, it was with SBRs. And SBRs were relatively new. I think I've told you I did the first SBR in the state of Pennsylvania. And it was one of their machines. And that was always their history. If you had any kind of questions or they'd respond immediately.
well, it's nice to know the calls, it's not a call center in India or someplace
No,
else.
yeah.
That's exactly right.
You know,
And
so,
they'll have personnel come to the site if necessary.
yeah,
So
that's,
it's a real benefit in that regard.
so talk to us through with this map that we have in front of us.
Yeah.
Please.
So you can see that oops, here's their aqua narrata system. They've got a third tank that they haven't started using. I think they plan on using that when they get the big flows in the fall, summer seasons. And the sludge is wasted into this pond here, and there's a series of aeration diffusers in there with blowers in the building. And this is an old clarifier, so they take they are using that for I don't want to say they're using that for sludge stabilization, and it's slipped my mind. Because he talked about it as a possible use for flow equalization to help him get his granulation better. And whether he's doing that right now or he's going to, I'm not sure. But you can see these were all his lagoons prior to this. And so these are all now where the sludge is put out and it just dries and hauled to the landfill. And they're not gonna have to haul to the landfill for quite a while, because you can imagine. But they also get very, very little rainfall compared to us, and so that certainly helps in the drying process for the sludge beds. So this really is the newer portion here. There was two of these apparently, and there was another clarifier here. I guess they took it out, or maybe it was there.
What's
Seems to
the
be
green one
This,
at the bottom? Well, I meant at the bottom. I mean, are they still using the bottom one and the?
yeah, I think this is their effluents coming through here and being discharged, and where they. It's either this one or that one or both, I'm not sure. But they are able to take effluent that doesn't meet criteria and store it if they had to. And recycle it back. And that was, says it was about two months of startup and before they started getting their treatment to meet the effluent requirements. But he still doesn't have the full granulation that he'd like to see. I asked him about the number of people he has operating the plant. And I said, I suspect that you have a team for collection system and a team for the treatment. And he said, yeah. He says, okay, so now this is a 2 MGD plant with a 6 MGD peak flow situation. They have 3 people, 4 days a week. And a 4th person on 1 day a week to help with sampling of the process and taking it into the lab and doing
I see what you're saying.
basic work.
And that's 1 day a week.
And that's just one of the 1 days a week, yes. And so they run it for 5 days a week. And they have somebody stop in 2 hours on Saturday and 2 hours on Sunday.
So, but overall, they got 4 people running the
Yeah.
plant
That's right.
that they're paying. And how many do we have?
Between 5 and 6, I think.
How much would you need just for pump stations?
Pump stations could be split amongst, if you had 2 guys that were at the plant, those 2 guys can go out with your folks from the wastewater department. So I think you would only need 2. And then if you needed to get into electrical work, it's to have an electrician, whether you have a contract electrician or you have
Right.
like a master electrician on staff.
And you gotta have at least 2 people just for safety purposes, so.
Yeah, confined space and all that stuff.
And that's 24/7,
No,
just
8 hours a day.
8 hours a day.
You would have one call,
right?
but you would only,
Yeah.
you'd only have one person on
So
call.
it sounds like you'd have 2 fewer people, or they have 2 fewer people, don't we?
Potentially, how big's theirs?
And
I'm sorry.
Their plant? How big's their plant?
It's a 2 million gallon per day plant presently, and it takes up to 6 MGD.
That's what it was.
during-
It peaks out at
It
6.
peaks at 6 during the summertime.
Mm.
And they're expecting a lot more growth. Apparently there's a couple
Large.
of breweries that are coming into
What's
town.
that?
it's
Yeah,
a lot larger than ours. Yeah.
So what are the state requirements for hiring people and how often you need them to
I
be
think
present?
it's 3. I think the state requirement for some reason is 3. You need to have 1 manager and then 1 level 4 that acts in coordination with your manager. And then below that, you can have like a level 2 or a level 3.
But is that a reflection on traditional plant design?
Yes.
Okay,
And it
So-
wouldn't change for this plant, I'm sure.
it would not,
I
and
would
not
not- I would
reflecting
not
this
think
kind of
so.
technology.
I would not think so.
Okay,
You still have screens you gotta maintain, you gotta take samples. And do your lab work, you gotta make sure, check your SCADA system that it's operating correctly, that all your probes are in, clean, that type of stuff, so that you can leave it overnight.
I see.
Yeah, you don't want. You want somebody who's looked at it on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and
Yeah,
the day after.
Okay,
Right. And some of those poor people go on vacation sometimes.
Mhm.
They gotta. I mean,
we don't have AI for this, is that right?
Sharon's gonna take care
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
Robots.
Um,
Yeah,
So
sure.
that was pretty much all my discussion with him. In my mind, there wasn't any big surprises in what he said. Other than this granulation situation, which he clarified for me, but it has always been a little bit of a concern for me. And I would say that. Then, the one other question I asked him is about the sludge buffer tank. I asked him, what's the purpose of the sludge buffer tank? That receives and he says it's just a matter of an equal, almost like a clarifier where the the discharge from the plant, from an operating, one of these operating systems, when it turns off the air and it discharges the sludge removal portion into a tank. And that sludge will settle out, and they take some of the granules back, and the looser sludge they pump to the drying beds or to this digester system. So that was the reason for this buffer tank. It's
Essentially,
one of the components that is necessary.
waste activated and
Yes.
RAS and WAS.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Without, it's not RAD, it's not return activated sludge, but it's a form of,
Your
it is really.
Yeah,
it's
it's-
right,
it is,
But
yeah.
as a, you don't usually use that term in a batch reactor, but
Yeah.
you're right, it is similar to that.
Mark, in your conversations with this person, I'm noticing the proximity of this plant to what appears to be residential communities.
Right,
Did he indicate anything about
odors.
odors, complaints from the the neighbors?
No, none, and I failed to ask him that question, also, I just didn't expect it to be a problem. In my mind, so I guess I didn't, I should have asked, but
Oh, that's okay.
I would be surprised. I mean, if there were odors, it's gonna be out here from this area. And I don't know where the prevailing wind, because this is where the sludge has been dumped, and it depends on how fast it dries. Once it gets dry, it's not an odor problem usually.
That's their biggest buffer too, pretty much.
Right.
If you were a grand poobah and you could make the decision, what would you do? What technology would you put in?
Well, I feel this is really very interesting technology. What I keep wrestling with is that the batch reactor technology is also very good. And the savings in tankage size is a very noticeable difference, that this is, much higher ranking than the SBRs for tankage size. However, if you were to put it at your existing plant site, the use of existing tankage may decrease the benefit that tankage weight makes. If you had put in SBRs, you build them similar to what they show on that little drawing that we just saw. But you didn't have to build any other tanks, because you need effluent equalization. They did not have effluent filtration like you saw at Berlin. They just go to a clarifier and discharge from a clarifier because it's an existing tank. But you have existing tankage, which I would try and, if I were doing the design, would try to make maximum use of and decrease your overall costs. You've got an old primary clarifier right in the middle of the field, which would make an excellent effluent EQ tank. You have sludge tanks already. You need to move your blowers around and things like that and get things lifted. The tanks that you would build would probably be better using an Nareda, because I would think that you would want to put platforms on top of the tanks to hold some of your equipment, rather than have it down at grade where it could flood. So it's hard to know, but certainly the smaller tanks is a real benefit, and a decrease in the operational costs is touted as well, and that's a big deal, because it's every day for years.
Would there be any difference between an SBR and the Aqua Narita and our current on odor? Because current site is in the middle of,
Right.
and in fact, the maybe higher ground site that was part of this last meeting would be in the middle of residential areas.
Well, certainly the odors are generated in the influence screen area. And they're generated in the sludge handling. So you can make extra effort. Put buildings over top of those areas and things like that, have biofilters to filter the air. But
Choice of
certainly,
process wouldn't matter.
I don't think it would make a big difference in
Okay.
terms of the process itself. Certainly, the SBRs being bigger, you have more open area, but the SBRs themselves don't usually stink. It's the sludges that are taken from them and handled in a different area. That you might get odors. That and the influence screening, which would be the same in either of those
Okay.
systems.
So are they using that clarifier?
I think he was planning to use it.
That's the round building.
Yeah, it's a
Looks like a
tank
water
with a
tower.
cover with an aluminum dome over the top of it, and simply because the weather there is a lot colder than here.
Let's take a minute to talk about that, please. I'm not familiar with Montana. I've never visited it and I haven't studied it on the map. Where is this in Montana? Is it in the northern part of the state?
Northwestern, I believe.
Is it in
Yeah.
the plains? What?
No, it's
In the valley.
mountains.
I'm on, Betsy.
Okay, so it's that close to
Let me take,
Canada.
yeah. Cause there's,
That's Idaho.
yeah. You're in the northwest piece of Montana, cause you're, Montana's edge is right here.
Right. When I was,
So Yellowstone is down in this area here, and there's Missoula. The university is.
and the reason I was asking that question was, is there, how much of what their their experience of using this technology might be affected by the weather that is found in that region
Yeah.
of the state,
That's a good point.
and the bugs that are needed.
That's right. All treatment plants work better when it's warmer. At least
So
that's
that's
what
all.
the bugs like.
Okay.
So, you have to consider in cold regions like that. Whether you put covers over. Now, the thing is you are pumping air into the bugs all the time.
So that's
And
ambient
that's
air
warm.
temperature, right?
That compressed air is warm. If you touch, you can.
Well,
you can
warmer than ambient.
Certainly warmer than ambient, substantially
How
warmer.
are they
You
actually
would
heating
have a
it?
hard time holding your hand on the piping
Really?
when the tanks are full. The pressure is higher when the tank is full, and so the higher pressure creates hotter air.
So they're not having to artificially heat that water?
No, it's warmed by the compressed air.
It's like ours. If you go down
Yes.
there and you put your hand on the blower's, it's warm to the touch. I mean,
Yeah.
you can put your hand on it and pull
When
it
you
off.
pull
real
it
quick,
back.
But you're not putting it on there for any amount of
Right,
time.
precisely. And
I
that
see.
wouldn't change there.
All right,
No, the fact that air is going off and on, however, in that, for the settling portion, you want to make sure that it's not off for such a long period that ice forms on the surface or something like that, because then you gotta turn the air back on, break all that up. I'd be surprised if that were the case, you're not turning it off for 6 hours or something like that. You turn it off for an hour and a half or 2 hours and then turn it back on again, the heat of that body.
and
But it's also important for the microorganisms.
Yeah.
They want to be warm to get the job done, to eat the sewage.
Right.
So that's an important part.
and
of
is
it.
relative humidity part of this
Well,
concern at all?
It doesn't usually come into play.
It does not, okay.
The fact that it's very dry there, it certainly
That's what I
helps
thought.
in the sludge handling side of things, but not so much in the treatment component.
Okay,
So did he express any reservations about the choice they made to go with Aqua Narita?
None whatsoever.
Even though they haven't gotten the granules to the
Yeah,
size they were.
he's still meeting his effluent permits. He just thinks that the granulars should be a larger size, you know, I guess they run sieve tests on
Right,
the granulars and the granules, and they haven't reached the full size, and he attributes to, you know, extra devices that aren't performing quite as well as they should.
so not the
Equalization,
system itself.
not the system itself. He seemed very satisfied with it. He was satisfied with the cost reductions.
The operational cost reduction.
Yeah, the power company is giving them a break, a grant because of their lower operational costs, you know, that's a real benefit. But
So the demand that, I think that suggests the demand charges associated with usually running a large three-phase.
yeah, I really, I
Okay.
don't know.
Okay. Huh,
Good screens,
Equalization.
they do not have that effluent filter, and that
Yeah.
would make a big difference for them if but they apparently they don't feel that they need it for their discharge.
You think that's why they use alum?
They use alum prior to the discharge to remove phosphorus,
Yeah,
and you know, he uses that clarifier to get the last bit of phosphorus that precipitates out.
But if he used the kind of equipment you had at Berlin. That footprint would be tiny. Compared to what he had before.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
mean, it'd be those tanks and,
Yeah, and
The
you have
metal
a
tank.
building with a filter in it,
and,
and he would add the alum still on the discharge
yeah.
in the flow equalization tank.
But he
Stir
would-
some alum there and filter it out. And it'd be highly polished water.
did he mention anything about his use of chemicals, and it sounds like it's only the alum, has that increased with this technology application?
He
or-
didn't say, I know he used alum before, he didn't point out that it was a difference.
Okay,
And thinking through the process, I would be surprised if it's a huge noticeable difference.
okay, either way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that statement, but
right,
You're using UV, right?
he is using UV, yes, yeah.
okay.
I didn't know if he was chlorinating and then dechlorinating or not.
Let me double check.
I'm almost positive they're UV.
I think that is correct.
The disinfection of the water before you discharge to the stream.
okay.
Yes, it is, it's UV, because it's what they had to begin with, and they stuck with it.
Yeah,
Well, that's good information.
Thank you very much for that, Mark.
Well, thanks for putting up with that.
No,
if we go, can we go down this sheet and you can tell us what you have answers to and what you don't? Okay, chemicals that you use are alum. The phosphorus. Removal. Get to the water per capita. We talked about at one of the meetings that we were surprised at how little.
It was
flow they had
154 per capita.
Hmm.
Your number was 154 per capita. I think,
Yeah.
for that.
where did you get that? 154?
That's not on here, it's in. That long
Or the spread.
thing that,
Yeah, that facility plan that they
that
did.
facility plan, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
500 page.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted,
You-
It's a
you read it,
bestseller.
so you-
wanted Barbara to know I read it.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
impressed.
Yeah.
Thank
He
you.
Get a
did know
star.
one fact, made sure to bring it up today.
Thank you, to embarrass me and impress me.
They did say the energy usage is lower. They didn't give me hard numbers or,
No.
noticeably lower, and then that's why he talked about the grant from the energy provider.
And you did cover why they selected Narita after they originally looked at that
Right,
Dickies or whatever
right.
it was.
it had to do mostly with the construction size of tanks, things like that.
Boy, all the land they have and they've got this tiny little.
Yeah, yeah, that's
It's
right.
amazing, isn't it?
Did he talk anything about, were they able to meet their schedule as far as the construction schedule, any delays associated with that?
I don't know. I didn't ask him about that.
Okay,
Did they operate their old plant while they were in
Yes.
construction?
And during the startup, they had part of their old plant going to keep, until they got the granules going.
and the actual project management of that kind of construction project, that is a service that Aqua Narita is not providing, correct? That would be by the general contractor
Well,
Is
it'd
that
be by the engineer
or the
and,
engineer?
and the general contractor, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, usually you have a on-site representative from your engineering company, making sure that they're building it according to the drawings and specifications.
I see.
So you get the contractor puts in the bid based on the drawings and specifications, and then you hold them to it.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And you talked about the ongoing support, but what about training? Did he talk about that? Did they send people out to
Yeah,
Training.
Rockford or did they?
they went to Rockford originally in part to make a decision.
Ah,
But also, when they did their startup, Aqua Rovers comes to the site, helps show people what there's no surprises, but what their expectations should be.
and number 7 is the big question.
Yeah, that was the one that surprised me a little bit.
Yeah,
Maybe this is relevant to that question.
Mhm.
Why don't they just go to Rockford, get tank trucks of granules and cart them on out to Whitefish
Yeah.
or anywhere else
Yeah.
that's gonna start up and
It's a
stick
good
it in.
question. It's a
Yeah.
real good question. So I don't know if there's,
Didn't they say to us that you can buy them or
Mhm.
something?
Right, you buy it, right?
If you don't have the time to create your own.
Right.
Yeah,
is it?
it's a commodity market,
Yeah.
I think.
So how much does that cost?
Well, I mean,
You're
it just
absolutely
seems
right.
like
You're right.
there's honey trucks driving all over the place.
Yep.
You could load one up and
and get a real.
find a
jump-
guy who wanted to
jump
hunt.
Start on, a couple of tanker trucks of granules.
Is that, I'm gonna show my stupidity again. That's not something that's regulated crossing state lines, is it?
Well,
you know,
imagine sludge hauling is regulated. so
It is not?
It
It
is more than likely. I mean, but in the States, it's regulated for the honey dippers that go around septic haulers. They
Right.
need licenses and stuff. And if they vacuum septic from a septic field in Delaware, and it's got to go to Maryland and be discharged like at Berlin, we receive it.
But I'm sure you can get a permit.
You
to
get
do that.
you just get
once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's,
I see.
I'm sure it's not a problem.
Okay,
didn't they talk about when they imported it into the US and it got held up
That's
in
right.
customs or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's been
you're
done.
right, you're right.
I'm glad I wasn't that customs there.
Oh, my God.
So it seems like if we were to build at a greenfield site, that might be very much worth exploring. Bringing in.
At least
already-
understand.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
And I would think it would be to Aqua Narita's benefit to say we can start up in
You would think so.
2 months
I'm
or 1 month
surprised- I'm
instead of.
surprised They don't out there. Yeah.
Right,
That's a good point. Now,
that's. a good
maybe if
question to
they've
ask.
tried it, there's still Still some other startup problems but it would seem to me that wouldn't be a 2-month wait time. It might be a 2-week wait time if you had your granulars, all the granular sludge already there. I just don't know, and he didn't have any input to that either, but Aqua Rubbish.
It's disturbing to me that they haven't met the size of the granules they were expecting yet after
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah.
And
He seemed to blame his own facility rather than the process. And whether he knew enough to be able to do that, he seemed awfully
Well, it
knowledgeable.
might be a good question to ask Aqua and Rita again.
yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, that's a good idea.
Because there's still an active conversations and discussions with supporting this plan, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's ongoing.
Right.
Especially since they're trying to sell it to everybody around, they want to make sure things are right.
Yeah.
You know, big incentive to.
Sure.
Okay, when you asked about you told us they do anaerobic digestion. In one of the, say they did it in one of the,
No, it's aerobic. It's in that pond.
Aerobic.
That
Let's
was
go back to the
in
pond.
picture. The huge pond that they have. They have plenty of digester space.
You gonna find it?
Well, I was hoping I could just hit back, but I can't.
Go forward, go forward.
I thought I did something to make her day.
I have no sense.
Check
Direct
that
you.
whitefish.
Boosh.
Yep.
You got there?
Right there.
So this is our sludge digester. It's huge.
yeah, right.
That's really big. It's a real benefit for an operator to have that much room for sludge digestion.
Huh.
And since it's aerobic, it's not odorous.
No, right.
So it's anaerobic, it's aerobic. right?
Anaerobic.
Aerobic, yeah. Anaerobic is what
Yeah.
produce some odors.
And the sludge buffer is really just their RAS-WAS kind of system. Huh? We concluded
I'm sorry.
the sludge buffer tank. The recycled,
Yes, that's
And,
just a
waste.
method by
Yeah.
which they're able to.
yeah,
Keep the age of it.
they don't have effluent filters. Okay, the plant is staffed. Is there 4 people? 3 people and then a 4th on the.
Doing samples,
Okay.
Doing samples on one of the days.
8 hours a day and then 2 hours each day on the weekend.
See where it says more? No, more.
Where do you find the elevation, Austin?
See where it says more quick facts in that area? It might be
Oh,
under the
here.
more section.
Would it be in layers?
No, not on this one.
Oh, I'm surprised at that.
They don't have good like pictures of the sewage. plant.
You're gonna buy a house?
It's higher than us. You wanna put money on that one?
Yeah.
I didn't tell you I was also $5 worth in chemist.
Oh, no.
Yes, I'm just not a liberal arts.
It sounds to me like we need an in-depth discussion with another one of the treatment plants. If we're going to be comfortable without startups. What do you think, Mark? What do others think?
Yeah, I think,
And now, Austin,
specific to that one issue,
yeah,
that issue, screening is important
Yes.
issue. And the sledge is always important. It's the tail wags the dog, but you're right. I think startup has always been my biggest concern.
Yeah,
And again, I restate, I don't think it's a concern if you were to put an AGS system at the existing plant site,
right.
because you have the existing plant making beautiful water while you're getting it geared up. But you learn from what he's talking about by making sure your screening is good,
Mhm.
whether you reuse the existing screens or in part. I don't think we need all of the screening that you have presently, but
You wouldn't need the 2 millimeter. anyway.
yeah, that's. And then to make use of existing tankage as best as you can.
Mm. Well, if we could use, if we kept with option one, we would use the existing digesters. We could, I don't know what's happening with that, equalization tank in terms of rebuild.
You talking about the one that's utilized today?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're waiting to see if they could put a reinforcement ring around the top,
Mhm.
but it's already been, I mean, it's been slated to be replaced. It's kind of dependent on what we invest in that. If we're gonna stay there, we'll put, another 500,000 gallon tank in. You put a 1,000,000 gallon tank in.
Mm.
Would you, may I just ask, would you do realize that greater capacity by building on top, increasing the existing tank?
No,
Or you'd be
replace.
building a separate tank?
No, completely replacing that tank, whether you
Oh,
move it to, like, if you build it to the side of it and then completely demolish the other
I
one.
see what, I see.
You can't expand the life of a glass line tank.
I see.
It's once it's end of life, it's end of life. You can't line it, you can't do anything else.
So why are you contemplating capping? I think you described capping.
So the top flange is a steel flange,
Uh-huh.
and the steel flange has eroded with the salt air.
Right.
And so what we're discussing is the steel flange adds a little bit of rigidity to the top. What we're discussing is actually there's a center brace around the entire
Right.
thing. We're talking about putting one on the top to add the rigidity of the deteriorating top flange
Right.
for a period of time, call it 5 years, until you would
And in
have
the
a
meantime, you're
solidified
building
plan.
something that, an adjacent
Nope,
tank?
nope,
or
you wouldn't build the adjacent plan. This is basically just, I don't want to call it a Band-Aid, but this is essentially putting a fix to a solution instead of spending the 500,000 to $1 million to put a new EQ tank in. Because you don't want to necessarily put an EQ tank in if you're going to go to another greenfield site.
And what is the cost of doing this?
I'll
Not the Band-Aid, but it kind of.
I'll
sounds
let
like
you
a
know when I
Band-Aid.
find out.
Okay.
It's in the works as we speak.
So
But
if
the
you-
other thing you gotta think about, and it goes back to the flow, to keep your bugs happy, is that, let's just say you decide on an option one scenario, is that if the county gets and moves forward with the Ocean Alpha at 5 million gallons or whatever it may be, are they gonna continue to send flow? Because why would they?
To us, you mean?
Yeah.
Of course they don't.
We might be
Yeah.
cheaper than.
But why would they? Which then that brings up, you're gonna have the 500,000 gallon swing from prime season to off season.
Mhm.
Yes.
So if you look at the one thing you're talking about with the topping on it being, better structure. What other things over the next 5 years are we gonna have to spend on our current plan?
Can we bring our plant up?
Good
now?
question. Carl.
Yeah.
It's 19958.
Lewes, LEW.
Yes.
Yes.
Lose?
Lose.
Your elevation of Whitefish is 3,000 feet.
Yeah, a little bit
Thank
higher,
you very
a little higher.
much.
Be a tough storm.
Yeah.
If I had to say about your, like, the money you'd have to put into it. So this concrete is the concrete that's 40, 50 years old. That's the one that we did to.
Yeah.
I think that you're gonna have a discussion of whether or not you could put the ring on the top of this and debate what you're gonna do with that. Your digester is fairly new, so you should be good there. This building, I believe was expanded on, when they did the 2008. There may be some just cosmetic things that need to be done, roofs, doors, for the most part, because your canal outfall is relatively new, because that was just done. The headworks building or the treatment building is pretty much done. You got to think your filters were 2020. So
And they have a 10-year term.
yeah, they say 10-year useful. What is it? 10-year. It's not a 10-year useful life. It's like 10-year thought to be useful life, but you can go longer depending
Right.
on
Proper maintenance.
yeah.
And care, right.
So
Um,
8 years.
I mean, I think it's odds and ends stuff. It's nothing huge, but as soon as I say that, something happens. So
So we've got the
And,
headworks.
and you would
No.
probably do mechanical sledgehammer.
yeah, the board actually approved the quote to put in the sludge line coming from the bottom of the digester building out and up to a cam lock so that the county can just pull right from the digester directly from the tank instead of going up over the wall as a temporary solution. And then we put the foam pump in. That was the other one that we did. And that is to eliminate the foam that's being pumped off from the two oxidation ditches. Instead of having it go back to the headworks and running through the system, we're pulling it off and sending it to the digester.
I wondered what.
If you
what that
decrease
was
the mixed
doing.
liquors, it'll do away with that foam.
They've been playing with mixed liquors for I don't even know how long, and they're still running the same issue.
And what are those issues?
It's just the issue is just the foam itself. It's the foaming. Like Mark said, if you decrease your mixed liquors, you can reduce the amount of foaming. Sometimes they say that it can be temperature related because we see a lot of foam kind of in the summertime. It increases in the wintertime. We've seen it too, but really the summertime has been summertime's been the worst.
Yeah, usually if you waste, it takes a lot of wasting, but.
Yeah.
To get the mixed liquors down, but you don't want to waste too far, you don't get the full treatment you need for ammonia removal.
Well, and then that's where you get into your bottleneck. It's like you pick, you could argue that oxidation ditch is your bottleneck, but then if you start wasting, then your bottleneck would really become your solids handling.
But knowing what probable costs we're gonna have over the next 5 years is something valuable to have.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a number, and that number's never gonna be right, but
Of course it's not, but
I think you'll have more money in pump stations than you will in.
On it?
it could still be a large number.
Whatever happened to putting a tank in there so that the discharge of effluent would only happen when the tide was going out Roosevelt Inlet?
That was only under the scenario that the county would handle the flow because the county has the lagoon storage to discharge on the outgoing. I mean, you can. What did GHD do? They did a 3.5 million gallon tank.
Yeah,
And was that because they wanted to do the discharge on the outgoing? I can't remember.
I can't remember why they did that.
It's a
And
year old
I
now.
asked them about that.
That's
and
a big ass tank.
I think it was more because they were worried about flooding and moving.
Like you had the extra capacity,
Yeah.
the headroom.
Yeah,
What's the status of sewage from Cape Henlopen coming to your treatment plant?
We're
I'm
down.
on record. I have no idea. It's every year, same time every year. You'll get an email that wants to start it back up another year, and then you'll get another email.
Because the state, I thought, was down on them for their existing system because it was putting a lot of nitrogen into the canal. Through the underground.
Yeah.
Hmm.
If it was a municipal doing the same thing, it wouldn't be looked at the same way.
Seems to me that it's crazy to put a pipe out into the ocean. if you could discharge from Wolf Neck into the canal just when the canal is going out Roseville Inlet, so that you're not sending anything to the inland bays.
Well, every scenario that was under the option 3 had that in. I know that for a fact. I don't think scenario 1 and scenario 2 did. But I remember scenario 1 having an astronomical amount of storage, because the EQ tank was bigger than the headworks building,
Yeah.
which was 3 stories.
But you also don't need as treated waste if you're putting it into the ocean. Lower standard,
No, you'd still have your same nifty outfall.
you sure?
I mean,
Yeah,
you
I'd be
can run your,
surprised if the state nowadays.
you can run your scenario to see, I mean, you can do like the environmental impact study, but it won't change. I mean, if you're making the argument, you would essentially, you would almost make the argument that you're an ocean outfall permittee, because you would have 0 impact on the inland bays. Because all your impact
I
would be
think
going.
I think it's exactly right though. I think it is a lower standard.
It is, I just don't know.
What
if
about
they'll-
the existing ocean outfalls? Do you know what the standards are for them? For,
There's not a
That's a-
there's not a nutrient component.
is
That's,
that right?
In Rehoboth, they kept the nutrient component,
Oh,
but it's not my understanding is it's not regulated off nutrient component.
that's
It's,
my
it's a, it's a part of the permit, but it's not a regulatory component. In South Coastal, I don't believe they have, it's all flow-based limits, not like phosphorus and nitrogen. My understanding, I may be wrong, but that's how
Well,
I
the thing that's
understand
coming
it.
at us is phosphorus.
PFAS, it has,
Well, I mean, ocean outfall, you're not doing anything wonderful. For the bottom of the ocean. You just don't have to worry about it so much.
Let's pump water out of the ground and dump it in the ocean.
yeah, right, I know. Frustrating.
In the lowest state in the union.
Yeah, it's sinking.
Hmm. Let's think it some more by pulling more groundwater out.
So somebody suggested that we talk to another one of the,
Yeah,
and it should be somebody who's started up,
Yeah, that just started up, I think.
you know, and either, I mean, you got really Wolcott, Kansas, start up in 21. And then,
probably have to be the suit.
the Hawaii thing is
An airport.
something different, so.
Maybe trying to get one that's got our same kind of longitude and latitude. something.
So
Yeah.
if there's somebody at Wolcott, Kansas who talked to us, that'd be a good thing.
That would be good.
And I volunteered to do the tour of the Dublin, Ireland plant, and that's gonna require a field visit. Cause the telecom service is not reliable.
Duly noted.
Yeah.
You bill that to the city?
I mean, it seemed from just eyeballing this, it would seem like Wolcott, they had a conversant person willing to talk to us would be the best because the Hawaii one is just a postage stamp. Small,
Could you bring up Walcott, Kansas,
and
treatment plant?
Go ahead, Sharon. You
Sioux
got it.
City
No, how do you spell it?
is mixed use. I don't know what that means.
WOLCOTT.
Yeah, excuse
There
me.
you go.
Oh,
Yeah, it's got some industrial components and.
Let's see if you can find a wastewater
Nope,
treatment plant.
you're right.
It's applicable.
It's not along the bodies of water.
Oh,
Damn,
I was right on it. You just zoomed in.
it's not built out yet.
Good work.
wow.
How old is that
That was
photo?
impressive.
November 23rd.
There you go.
Wow.
God, there's a hill there in Kansas. And there's another one.
Wow, it's not bad looking.
Look, they got an administration building too.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. Underground electric.
Get to
Emergency
that.
generator,
If we were to build at a greenfield site, say the Kennedy property or somewhere, whatever, and we would be discharging to the canal, but to the other side, we would need a whole new permit, right?
I don't think so. I think they would view it as the same, it's the same discharge location, just the opposite side of the canal.
Is there any way to get a real answer to that? Because Donna seemed to think, I talked to her last week. She seemed to think that if you have your discharge pipe at a different location, you've got to do an impact study on the receiving water body.
I have a phone call tomorrow with someone that possibly would be involved in this. I can probably ask him.
That would be great.
Main Street.
Yeah,
Wow. They put their treatment plant on these. How about that?
I bet it's a great town on Saturday night.
part of the
I
wastewater
wonder where
plant.
where does that discharge to there? Is that creek over
Connor
there?
Creek,
Connor
probably,
Creek?
yeah,
Mm,
pan back a bit and see
Wow.
where Connor Creek goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back goes to Lewes.
Yeah,
There
to
you
the
go.
Missouri
Oh,
River.
Missouri River.
There you
I
go.
mean, you're towards Missouri, just like.
Wow.
Huh. And it doesn't look like there are any help, there's not, there's
Pretty
anything
regret.
around it.
The speedway there.
It's Kansas.
Yeah, it's just the same, Austin.
How big is Walcott?
He gets the wastewater
Sharon
treatment
said,
plant.
yeah.
I got as many pump stations as you do.
30.
I'll bet they have flooding concerns there.
I bet you're right. Spring flooding,
Yeah. Missouri River.
right. Look how dark that soil looks.
Mm.
Restaurants, hotels, things to do, sewage treatment plants.
There's nothing under the.
Can't you
things
click
to
on the
do
floodplain
that.
level there?
Where,
Bottom right?
Hmm?
I don't know if they give you floodplain.
no.
You want me to Google them or do a Wikipedia?
I mean, they're gonna be higher than where you're at today.
Elevations. 850 feet.
Pan out a bit and let's just see what the city itself looks like. It's right off the.
Well, kind of small. And that's
Well, it's called Wolcott, but it's within Kansas City. It's a suburb of Kansas City, so. they have-
So,
It's a neighborhood.
oh,
Yeah.
that's where my daughter
So
lives.
it doesn't have an exact population. But
It says 625.
okay, well,
That's a small treatment plant.
Oh, my God.
yeah, but they're treating more than that,
Yeah.
presumably something from Kansas City.
Well, from the Speedway.
yeah. That's a dirt track too.
Wow.
This looks like the treatment system up here.
Is that what you think that is?
Yeah,
Well, no, the right looks like a baseball diamond.
it looks like a storage area, doesn't it?
Yeah,
There's your-
it could just be farm ponds or something, farm irrigation. But it's right on the river.
Can you drop the little guy in there?
Nope.
Yeah.
Is that road?
It might have something to do
With
it may
asphalt.
have something to do with the asphalt.
Yeah.
It's like road costs just across it, you know, a road crossing.
Yeah,
But if you look at that, I mean, the way that they built that, it looks like they built it in an elongated fashion, so. If you look at like the parcel of Robert Kennedy's. For example,
For example,
yeah,
they got 3 tanks there.
is it gonna be 4 though? Is it only 3?
Looks
Look.
like it's just 3.
One,
Looks
two,
like 3 open tanks.
Yeah, these might be smaller. Comments to it or something, I don't know.
Did they tell you what was
Looks like
the
they-
length of
it is,
construction for Whitefish?
The what?
Length of construction from the time they started to the time they were up?
No, I can ask that of him.
okay,
I
so
don't
it's,
remember him saying that.
Yeah, I didn't know, cause he was running simultaneous, right? They stayed in
Yes.
operation,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
it says that they
I think-
were
I think it-
expanding their aging 0.3 million gallon per day plant up to a maximum rated capacity of 6 MGD.
That's a huge.
Who's that? Walcott?
Walcott.
From point
0.3
yeah.
to-
6?
To
Yeah.
a max, so I would say that's a peak or 6, so it's
Yeah,
probably like a
right.
2.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably
like
could just
Whitefish
build
too.
additional outhouses for everyone. It's cheaper. I mean.
Or have the guy, you know, just export 2 or 3 people who were causing a lot of trouble.
Oh, God.
Oh my gosh, look at Sharon.
Yeah, so if you're getting this in the background, you can see it's a fairly large site.
Wow.
Wow,
It's a likely
See
utility
that
kind of a
fit
project,
right there?
a greenfield wastewater treatment plant. Being delivered through a new process for the unified government with the CMAR, using a new technology.
We're using a type of technology here in Wyandotte County that is really innovative for the United States.
There's one in operation that successfully started up down in Alabama. Folks from Garney, folks from HDR, all toured that facility as well as the one that have been in operations for overseas for quite some time.
There's sludge on the right.
And we were very reliant on HDR and Garmin to help us make the best decision for the site and evaluate options.
Early on in the facility planning phases, that's one of the things you always look at is, okay, what is the ultimate watershed development gonna be? Where are those flows gonna be conveyed to and, you know, design the ultimate flow of the plant. And so on this facility, the phase 1 flow of 2 million gallons per day for average daily flow was selected with an ultimate up to 18 MGD.
Part of the benefit with the CMAR is you get to develop the work packages early on, so you can get some cost surety up front.
There's a
Specific to
screen.
the maintenance building, we were able to, one, get that feature of work done sooner.
Got some elevation
We were
there,
able to
Nick,
Store
with-
process equipment that's coming here before too long and not have to add to the GMP to store off site. You know, we can build offices in there and house people, have meetings, and it's a much more collaborative thing. And we didn't cost the owner any more money.
We wanted to have the engineers input and the contractors input at the same time. That was a big determination to kind of figure out the budgets and have all the right people at the table to help make those decisions.
I gotta get some.
As the
pants and
federal
boots.
representative for Wyandotte County, it was really, really amazing to see the speed with which the plant was able to be built.
This is a remote site, you know, so having one facility where operations staff can enter in a secure point, kind of walk their way through the facility makes sense. Obviously, the discussion about just trying to get the site as compressed as possible to save on site related costs was important, but also just the ease of operations, being able to enter in one location.
It allowed our operators to look forward to the time when they would come on site, be able to quickly walk down from one facility to the next. I get to come to work and work with people that I know and trust. I can pick up the phone, have an honest conversation, and things have progressed very well because of that.
Good work, Sharon.
Good work.
yeah. So
they'd be worth talking to. if
Yeah.
they-
Okay, I'll see if I can make contact and, Mark, would you
Oh,
be
yeah.
willing if I make
Yeah.
contact?
Sure,
Yeah. So,
Sure.
does anyone else want to be on that call or?
Christmas Day,
Sure, I will volunteer for that.
Yeah, okay.
You did.
You know, you get the family around and
yeah.
Yeah.
need something to do elsewhere.
They did visit Foley, Alabama.
Who
They
did?
did say that.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you've talked to Foley.
I didn't get much out of them, but the only reason I say about doing like Wilcott
Yeah.
is it's not one that they've said to go look at. So it's kind of like the one-off like Whitefish, like you reached out to Whitefish, it wasn't, it's more of you're getting the raw information from them instead of them being involved
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
Because they push Foley as being like one of their poster childs. It was the first one that came up online. I think that was what, 2018, Foley, Alabama. I think Foley
Yes.
was
Yes,
2018.
2020, it was
2020
Was it 2020?
operational.
startup. Yeah,
Yeah,
So if they talk to us, that'd be really interesting.
Yes,
and that's pretty close to the same size plant. I mean,
yeah.
you wouldn't build it to 2, but
Tim doesn't want to
And
go.
that-
It might even be good for a field trip at some point.
I could go 7. That's.
Yeah, okay, so that sounds good. You know, I'm still curious about, besides the Kennedy property, what other places we might be able to do greenfield, if we can get our heads past the startup issue. And I'll see if I can find out about inoculating whatever from the Narita people, but,
You can do sleigh.
yeah, what about Schley? How
Not in
much
a
would it?
floodplain.
Hmm?
It's not in a floodplain.
And we own it.
A lot of buffers.
Yeah, yeah,
Where is this now that you're talking about?
Sleigh Avenue.
We could walk there in 30 seconds.
yeah,
You mean that open field that you were talking about?
No,
No.
right down Franklin Street towards
Oh,
the
where
bike path.
they,
Where the old station was.
yeah, where the wooden, the old wooden aerator is and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I drive through there on my way to the library pretty often, and I'm thinking, sure, why not? Sure puts everything in terms of administration, all right.
Can you pull it up?
yeah.
It's in Lewes.
How many
Lewes.
acres is that? though?
That's
And
not-
It's on my wall, I see it every
It's not
time.
big enough.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think you have the depth from Schley on the parcels that both the city and BPW are on. I don't think you have the depth from there going back to the bike path. If you were to turn and look at like where we put all of our electric stuff,
Yeah. Yeah,
you could potentially put it in there.
Isn't that about the same width as Kennedy's property?
No,
no,
Is
Do
this
you-
not as wide?
wow. Yeah, I mean,
There's Kennedy's,
yeah,
okay. and then-
Kennedy's comes out to here. Don't let this road fool you.
Yeah, so
Yeah, but
Yeah, but that.
Right, but
shows-
you-
Yeah. keep
you have
going down
buffers.
Georgetown.
there's nothing that says Slay Avenue has to be where it is.
good thinking, Bob.
What do you mean?
Relocate the street.
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
well, that's already been, that was, when we had that original discussion, we had said. The only people that really drive Schley, and I say that loosely, are the BPW in the city to come back to all their infrastructure.
Right, and Mark when he's going to the library.
I mean, if you needed more width.
Exactly right, Bob.
It's,
yeah,
Yep, move it to the north, to the west. Right, Bob?
You're still gonna have to purchase alternative land. I'm just letting you
Where?
know that, huh?
Why?
why?
Cause you're not gonna fit, if you take that parcel and you move Schley. And you get rid of the ability to use the buildings in the back,
Mhm.
where you gonna put all that equipment?
Well,
Army
there's a
Reserve.
lot of room back there.
Right.
It doesn't get used.
How about the
Yeah,
Army
but you remember,
Reserve?
you gotta have to have a buffer, plus you have the substation. So you have the
don't-
the
Wasn't
substations right
50.
here.
Yeah.
So. I'm not sure how you would configure it. Let's just say you want to keep everything here. You still have the city streets, because city streets wasn't, my understanding was they weren't planning to get moved to the reserve property.
Oh,
If you're
I
moving
think
this
that's a
way,
true statement.
if you're moving this way and you're thinking about using this property, each one of those bays has a piece of equipment in it.
mhm.
So if you eliminate that, you're not putting that back at the reserves, because you're not gonna have enough space on that property.
How many square feet do you need
For what?
for a wastewater treatment? I don't know the answer.
Well,
It's a tough question.
I thought, well, what is your you've been, the Kennedy properties, how many?
3.6.
How many acres? is it?
3.67.
Okay, and it's been suggested that would be a satisfactory site.
Not knowing what the buffers are, I think the same configuration as Wolcott, which is kind of running it long ways.
Right, I understand.
I think it's feasible, but I also don't know setbacks and buffers and
That's a city issue.
correct.
Correct.
Well, I mean,
Well,
and you would have quite an uproar from the populace. And so you'd want it to be an enclosed plant, pretty much. If you stuck it there. It would be more expensive there. And frankly, if you did the Kennedy property, you'd get a similar uproar.
You would.
Unless you did it like in the next 6 months and open bus wasn't there.
Jack Lingo would figure that out pretty quick.
I think so.
Oh,
So
God.
if.
Yeah, but that's property rights.
That's exactly right.
That's,
Yeah.
Well, I'm just
It's
suggesting
I understand.
that
Never have.
you'd be a lot more expensive, but successful, I think, if you did a pretty much enclosed.
Yeah.
facility.
yeah. Yeah,
Barbara,
I mean,
you had mentioned the land across the canal up
Yes.
here on the.
Right,
I would like to find a decent
right there.
elevation map to really understand what's there. And I know there's something called First State or something maps, but I can't figure out how to use them.
Sumner Crosby could help you, I bet, with that.
The USGS or the Delaware GS maps or
Right.
something.
So- Sumner was certainly that.
Sumner
Okay.
would be able to do that for you, I
Okay.
think. I'm volunteering.
What
Sumner
are the
Crosby.
possibilities of using state parking?
Mm.
I mean, what does that entail?
Secretary signing off on it.
Yeah,
Who has connections?
Well, it's gonna be connections with whoever the
You?
new administration group is gonna be.
Right,
But is there any way that anyone could raise it as a theoretical with someone?
I don't know if there's a restriction. Tim may know, is on the Warner grant, if there's a restriction on the use of it from,
Gibbs would know the answer to that.
who, Rob?
He did a lot of work with the water.
Yeah, the question is whether or not there would be a restriction, because as soon as you decide you're gonna do that, the same group.
Sure.
Or against
Theoretically.
the
yeah.
restaurant would
Yeah. Cause it would, it doesn't fall within the parameters.
Community,
right. I think the community benefit thing would be.
The other piece
accommodation
of state
for
land
grants,
that's
allow that.
available is out near the dog park.
Right, and that,
Yeah, that's city,
what,
maintained.
Well, it's state, I think it's, the dog park's in state land, but leased to us. Leased to the city.
but one thing that might actually quell the public uproar, the same people who objected to the restaurant in the park, is that this area is, I don't think most people think of this area as being in the park.
right, that's what I.
You know,
was
you don't go
thinking
through the pearl, you don't go through the gates of the park
too. Right,
to get to this piece of land. You,
the closer.
and
you
it's
are
it's
to-
in the city limits too.
Yeah.
I believe it is.
The closer you are to Freeman Highway,
Yeah,
the less objection I think you. get.
right. And that's the area that's been targeted is that that treat area,
right,
what I think of as the treat area
Right.
right now.
but I don't have a way to get the elevation.
Somebody
Well,
can do
I think
that.
some.
Can do
Yeah.
that.
There's a Sussex County site. Delaware County site, Delaware site that has that one.
Yeah, they're flood
Yeah.
thing, but.
I thought we looked at that at one time because we had the elevation there.
Well,
and I
Google
thought it was
Earth,
like 14
the-
feet
the
or something.
Google Earth free program.
Yeah,
Google it.
Do that,
Download
Sharon.
Google Earth Pro.
just do it, Sharon.
Well,
Ladies.
what about
You need this.
what about the property that is reserved by the city that's next to the water plant? That field on the corner of is it Clay Road there and
Oh, out there,
the water plant
I'm sorry.
near the high school.
right,
You know, it's
that-
some kind of reserve. There's a sign that says it's a reserve.
right. And I believe the understanding there is amongst the three partners who purchased it is that it would not be developed.
So
That's my understanding with the and the agreement was that the water tower that BPW had proposed would be allowed
in that area.
in that area, but the rest of it would remain fallow as far as this kind of development, industrial application or residential or commercial.
Okay.
Is to be considered open space. That's my understanding and recollection.
Mhm. You could fit a treatment plant in the Schley Avenue area, but you'd have to demolish a lot of other facilities that are there. And,
I got news for you, a lot of those facilities need to be demolished.
Yeah,
you know,
they're passive useful.
maintenance buildings, things like that, if they could be found
old
in
power
a
plant.
more advantageous place.
Are they part of the historic district?
It is in the historic district.
We're gonna redraw those lines right now.
Okay.
You know,
I
you know,
don't
the
know.
other thing that we
It might
might
be.
wanna, this is kind of radical thinking, and I hope the recording's been turned off now. You know, there might be a certain amount of economy that could be realized if the city and the BPW could enter into a cooperative agreement where garage spaces were commingled or you know, some way shared instead of having duplication. And there could be real benefits derived by the two organizations if we did something like that. I have been inside the Schley Avenue city-owned garage, which is the one that backs up to the bike path. And that building, right? No, the one on
This
the
one.
bike path, no, that's for Tom.
This one.
No, there you go, now you're right, that building there.
They used to have water treatment stuff in it.
And I think, wait a minute, let me get my bearings right.
There's the old narrator.
Okay, then, I'm sorry,
And there's the.
that's,
pump station.
that, Sharon, that's the building
This
with the
one.
metal roof, I didn't recognize it, right, with trash trucks.
Yep.
That building is in what I would consider very poor condition. Very poor. It's, it has needs. And I'm not talking about,
And by
you
the
know,
way,
making it pretty, I'm
where our
talking about,
plane is, or our
That's
building
right.
is,
yeah,
that's
It has
ready to
needs.
fall down.
It has
Exactly.
needs.
yeah, that's where, yeah. So
And
that
the old-
area is subject to
And
be
the old power plant
redeveloped.
isn't doing anything except holding up a mural, but.
Right, right. And in fact, the mural's probably holding it up by this time.
Well, it's a nice mural.
So that is, yeah. Nothing would be lost there. Or not much.
Except Lewis and Bloom would,
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, Sharon's working on a plan for them.
We need to give them some area at Jonesville. That's what I think.
That's an
would.
idea,
Give them
Yeah.
some, because they want to be able to plant plants and.
in like a greenhouse kind of thing.
greenhouses. Not have it, but give them land.
Yeah, but the thing is, what about if they needed structures? I mean, does that,
They would need to have greenhouses.
right,
Or how about near the dog park? And
Well,
get
the
them-
one
and get
downside
them
of
to run a
it
compost.
is the sledge handle. It's the possibilities of odor generation. And
Yeah.
you can put in a lot of effort to manage that, but you can't say 100% to everybody that it'll never have an odor.
The same's there as it is on the other parts, right?
Yes.
The other building, other places.
Yes,
yeah,
The beach people talk about it.
yeah.
People on Gillsville talk about it.
right.
The
But if
further-
you're
the further
locating
you
this,
can
it
get away
takes
from
away the
folks,
excuse that's been used for.
The
most
happier
part.
everybody would be if it's at all possible.
Low tide.
Yeah, low tide.
I know that gets used way too much.
Well, that's what we're saying, yeah. And that area there where your cursor is.
That's
Is
flood zone.
that, well, we manipulate the flood zone around here a lot. What about that area?
I think that's that's a
Who owns it?
drainage.
I don't know who owns it. I think it's Sussex County.
Where's Austin?
But DRVA?
DRBC, maybe.
It might be DRVA.
They own that building.
Yes, they own this
They
over
own
here.
that, but I don't know that their right of way, their ownership includes that. Because, when you think about all the sites that we've seen for these plants, they've all the grades have been manipulated to
Yes.
accommodate a higher water
Well,
table.
and that's the thinking of using the existing stuff.
That's
If
exactly right.
if you go put in a 20-foot deep tank and only 10 feet is sticking out of the ground or 15 feet is sticking out of the ground, you've got a lot of fill.
Right,
You either haul it away or you use it and bring the grade up
right,
so that your buildings and your access road and whatever is constructed with that.
with that in
cut and
mind.
fill balance.
Well,
Interesting thought.
there's a lot of possibilities at the current site.
This,
The
This green
problem you
area
gotta get
says-
over is the one. Like Donna said last week, or 2 weeks ago, is putting more money into that site,
Yeah.
Just a mental problem, but all of these other sites have big mental problems.
Yep.
To deal with.
Yeah.
And you could do an Aqua Reader or SBR system on the current site as a relatively inexpensive way to transfer from current technology to a new technology and make it look as inexpensive and attractive as you want it to.
Yeah,
And my whole problem with the original report from whoever that was,
PhD.
was that they twisted it
Mhm.
to make that sludge handling and then built a big barrier, And, as Mark says, you could do a big hole here. I mean, it would be, if you did it 15 feet above, which is 100-year floodplain kind of stuff. It'd cost you something to dig out a hole in the soggy ground. But so maybe you're up 20 feet
Yeah.
or so and down 20 feet and
Well,
you've got plenty.
a lot of those tanks that are there are down in the ground substantially.
Are they?
Yeah, the existing oxidation ditches are probably
Yeah, I was surprised.
14 feet deep. So they're, you walk up to them, the wall's right here, so they're down in the ground.
So,
So it's
but I
certainly
mean,
possible.
I'm sorry.
but you can pick your height
Yes,
Yeah.
and have it be.
access, the biggest problem that site is access. Get, for sledge for. Getting people to have a regular, I mean, if you didn't have to take sludge out.
That's,
And there's high water, you can get there by boat. The operators could get there and take care, you know, you build everything so that they can take the high water and just be islands out there,
Yeah.
tankage and operating systems. It's perfectly feasible. The problem is you've got to take sludge away. And you can either pump it away as a liquid, or you dewater it and haul it as a solid, which is usually less expensive over a 20-year lifespan. But then you need a truck to be able to come in and take it away.
Right,
So
or a barge,
here
go down the
is-
canal.
Yeah,
So this right here, this is where DRBA is and the buildings are.
got it.
This is owned by somebody named Thomas Lowe. And this is owned by Thomas Lowe. And this center parcel is owned by the city and the BPW.
All right.
there you
You
go.
can see an
Excellent.
indication of what's wetland.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a flood zone, that area.
Yeah.
Mm.
And by the way,
You
the
gotta
guy,
be-
the guy that owns those two sides next to us. He can't build anything on it
no,
No,
unless you let him, cause he's gotta bring in a lot of dirt.
Well, I was gonna say, if we wanna think like the developers in this area. The fact that that's the flood zone, that doesn't stop anyone from doing what they want, and I'm being
Yeah.
sarcastic, but also being. Very
That'd
honest.
that'd be a hell of a buffer now over there.
Would you take it up to the treatment plant area, sitting where the existing plant is?
move it a little bit.
It says it's 0.73 acres.
Where's Austin? He can,
Where are you seeing that?
When you zoom in, it
we were buying real estate.
Oh, 6.7.
6.7.
Mhm.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Were you talking about other parcels?
Yeah, we're talking about this area
Right
of
here.
Freeman Highway,
Across from,
these three pieces.
It's jointly owned, that one piece in the middle.
Yeah, this
The
is-
cornerstone
yeah,
piece
that's ours.
is us.
No, it's in the middle there. So
And then that
this
one, and then the one on the other side.
Yeah. these two.
What's the total acreage there, please, Sharon? Do you
This
have it?
one's 2.64.
And what about the other?
And,
Do your math, 221 by essentially,
They may be.
Five?
it almost looks like
Yeah.
That's
identical.
all one parcel. 2.64.
Yeah, parcel one and parcel
With
two.
two
Yeah,
owners.
7.01 and. Oh, I know. I know those people.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
where do they live?
It's, isn't it?
137.
That's, how do you close?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Mailing address.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you find that address on the,
Sure.
what,
I would hope, that's a nice area, Columbia Avenue.
how big's that parcel?
Which one?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Oh, we got a plan.
Yeah, so that one's 2.76, this one's what, 3.64? There's only one other parcel that I know of,
yeah, what's that?
would be the plumber. This is already under contract.
Oh, yes,
The plumber's the only other one.
right.
Plumber.
It's technically considered outside the city too.
And that might be an advantage for setbacks. To develop it in the county versus the city.
But the crown jewel is where the county is.
Well, from a location, yeah.
Yes,
Yes, yes,
it is hard to keep that.
Yeah, it's just
Be
that,
both that.
yeah,
it's just this parcel, if you're looking at it from a discharge perspective, it's.
Yeah.
Where are you gonna find?
Right.
Those 4 acres on the canal.
right.
But that would require us to duplicate or all the headworks that are currently in the existing plant, correct?
Yeah, but you could still, I mean, you could use the equipment from the headworks if you
Right.
needed to.
But all the infrastructure, all that piping and so forth that currently goes to that plant would have to be abandoned.
I'm
and
not an engineer, but stay at the Holiday Inn. I think you could utilize, the force main, and this is my wild idea. I think you could pump 8 into the force main that would pump back to 4 and then redo 4. And I know this is gonna be the sticking point because it's next to Earl's property. If you redid 4 and put the money into it and made it look like it was a part of Lewes, but it was really a pump station, then you would have all flow would come to 4, and then 4 would go out on Gills Neck Road and down to that property for treatment, and then maybe add a sidewalk down Gills Neck Road.
Where you gonna put the socket?
It's for you to kind of.
We want
The
to
pump
talk about,
station looks like a boathouse.
I like that idea, yeah.
You can mirror the garage that Mr. Webb has on his property.
But bigger. Yeah, supersize it.
It's the only garage on the entire canal.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah.
You used it for vehicles?
Mhm.
Wow. I never even thought of putting a vehicle in my garage.
Storage.
You were talking about the problem getting access off the Freeman Highway to the existing site.
Yeah,
What is, I mean, why is that such a huge?
because my personal opinion is you have to engage with really 2 other entities, which is DRBA and DelDOT. And then how, could you do it in an emergency situation where you just do it? Yeah, if you wanted to make it a more formal entrance, like an emergency entrance that would be gated. I think you would have to work through that with those entities, because you would actually have to, if you did that, you would have to cross through City of Lewes property to get to and cross the DelDOT railroad right away to get to the plant.
All right, but let's look at that
Yeah.
Yeah.
closely, if you don't mind.
So if
And
you,
because while that's a lot of negotiation, it doesn't cost anything but time.
no, you would do some, and I know the train entrance is here.
Right.
But you would have, my envision was that you would have to try and do something within this area. Like I would envision to come here and then there's a gate right here, so something that would come like that.
That's the old dump, Lewis dump.
Yeah, and this is where that 3-phase for circuit. I think it's circuit 2 comes up and then
But
goes
it's-
overhead.
200 feet?
Yeah, you mean widthwise?
Yeah, I mean,
But how many acres is that, 5?
5.26.
so I mean,
And who owns it?
if
City
you
owns it.
said,
I'm sorry.
if you said, we're gonna do a hell of a lot of negotiation with the 3 entities you talked about. You basically build a little road across there
Mhm.
that's 200 feet. It's probably the least environmental impact.
Mhm.
And yes, you've frayed a lot of nerves, but
It'd be similar to that entrance to their property on the other side of the bridge, where,
You talking about the DRBA property?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can even come this way and have your entrance actually just. I mean, you could build it as a bridge almost on pilings and have your entrance come in here instead of messing with this.
Yeah.
You got the bike path to worry about.
You still gotta cross it no matter what you do.
And if that site was to be seriously considered, where would the welcome to Lewis sign go on that site next to the?
Or another option is blow that plant away. Have it be what it probably should be, which is more marsh. Go with the county and prove that the technology that you guys are working on, we're working on, is a better technology.
And insist that they use it?
If it's a better mousetrap, why not? And now you've got
Especially
floodplains.
if we're paying for the operational cost.
Correct.
If it's got a lower operational cost,
Right.
Well, it doesn't have lower operational costs than the county's current.
We don't know what well, I mean, we have the operationals from, I think Rehoboth, I think that's what they provided as an example, which is they have a current agreement there. I want to say it's a 3 MGD plan, and I forget what the total operations and maintenance cost was for that.
And what percentage do we participate in?
We don't participate in any. It was the assumption was that we would be a third because we would own a third of the capacity. But then this comes down to, do you want to be an owner, or do you want to be a wholesale customer?
Right,
If you're a wholesale customer,
Right.
you're sending flow and you're paying for the flow being sent to them
right.
versus being an owner. And what does ownership look like versus a wholesale model?
So if you're with the county has land that's high above the floodplain. They will eventually be able to do spray irrigation there again. Technology becomes the question. And now that Hans is going, because he's a big believer in his current technology, maybe that's a wedge opportunity.
Mhm.
What's that plot between the plant and
This
the
one,
highway? No, on
This
that one, yeah.
that's City Lewes,
And how big is that?
5.26.
And what's the elevation?
Well, can I run contours? There's somewhere everywhere.
It's 4 or 6, something like that, 8.
Low, I think.
There it is.
Where?
There's the road. And you are, it's all flat.
It is, yes. With all those trees, it doesn't look
But
like.
that, I'm on this, you're on this side, that's where our plan is right
Right,
there.
right. I'm looking at,
Okay,
Yeah, that's what we had talked about for,
right,
a land swap or something.
yeah.
But I don't know what that I know it's green, but I don't know what the elevation actually is there.
Mm.
I didn't know.
But again, would, just thoughtful minds maybe, would the county, state, whatever you want to call it, let us put something in that location, and right across from that location is another wastewater treatment plant. I don't think we'd get the permit for it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying because of Wolf Neck being on the other side of the canal?
Yeah.
Well. Well, if it was located there, wouldn't that allow you to use the current outfall in the canal?
Yeah.
If
it
we
sure
could get it
would.
permitted, yeah.
What do you mean if you get a permit? I would think that you could use the existing
I-
outfall, you would just reroute the pipe.
You're looking at different technology, right? So you'd have to get a permit for it. But keep in mind, across, a couple 100 yards down to the right of that is another wastewater treatment plant. That's who you gotta beat.
But
I'm giving an opinion, I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's right.
oh, I understand, but I guess part of that is predicated on the relationship that the city's able, or the BPW is able to establish with the county, and if there is still value in being independent and not relying.
I get it. I
Right.
get that completely. I do.
Yeah,
I do.
But
I mean,
then,
I'm not sure that's ever been really resolved.
So the cost to,
Has
the cost to
It's on the
the
table.
city to go to Wolf Neck is the cost of renovation of pump station 8, is it? And the pipe all the way from there to Wolf Neck, or to the connection point near Governor's, I guess.
Right.
Are you talking about for
For the
under
option.
the 3 option? GHD's proposal was to put a brand new pump station at the current general site of pump station 3. Or 8, sorry, 8, which is on American Legion Road, and then they would use that as the regional, which would pump all the way back to Wolf Neck.
And the reason they did that was they thought that the land, again, next to my house that you guys own with us, was too valuable. But where the pump station is across, American Legion Road was a better place to have the major pump station.
Yeah, it's just the lowest part of the entire system, which I mean, that's
Make
how
it-
sewer-
But that means putting a pipe under the canal again.
They wanted to utilize the existing outfall as possibly the pipe. It's like an 8, I think that's a 18 or a 20
Yeah,
inch. But the question is that goes and then the canal drops real quick.
right.
So I don't know how feasible that is.
Yeah, I remember when we did the direction to drill for the water pipe going across the canal there that's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's not a small process, but it's pretty straightforward to put a direction to drill.
I mean, I'm literally doing it in probably a year and a half, because we're doing a water main across that Robert Kennedy's property.
Okay,
So if you knew that it was gonna come, you would just say, well, instead
two
of one
pipes.
pipe, I'm
Yeah.
gonna put a second pipe.
And do you
At least
know
in
the
here
actual
where-
location? Do you actually know where the pipe is going to come across to Kennedy's property? Like, is it in the front corner, one of the corners?
It's actually not gonna be on Roberts, it's actually gonna land like right here.
And Kennedy's on the other side.
Oh, no, hold on. I'm over
What
here.
you're saying?
It's right here. Kennedy's property is right here.
Correct.
So we're gonna get a temporary construction easement, and then the pipes, we're gonna land the pipe here. And then kind of do almost like a reverse tap. And come back and connect into this water main in Gills Neck Road. All within the Delta Road.
it's landing back here simply because the pipe's gotta come up and,
You need,
Robert's property is that 3.64, that's his.
yeah,
Great location.
well,
Question though. 2 questions. Worst case scenario. The county withdraws its, sending us
correct,
flow,
correct.
right? And they withdraw taking our sludge. So that would create problems if we kept our own wastewater treatment plant. One of the issues, I guess, would be we would need more storage for equalizing the feed into the
No, you
treatment or what?
You wouldn't need it on the incoming, because you're still only handling your flow, which is gonna be seasonal. You'd still use EQ
Yeah,
or equalization. On solids handling, it all would depend on the technology that you would want to use. I mean, you could come up with agreements where you would just send sludge, liquid sludge, or you would put something in like Berlin had, where you would, come up with a cake material, and that cake material would then be hauled out
right.
to a landfill, bearing that you get it down, you get as much water out of it as possible, because that's what we were struggling with.
Okay, I'm just thinking more of what Mark was saying about whitefish, that they put some of their problems down to, varying flows.
Yep.
And
If you have the equalization though that whitefish doesn't have, that allows you to have a continuous flow through the process, instead of whitefish being in the position that their flow comes in, and if they're getting 400,000 gallons, 400,000 is going through the system. And then, as time drops and they only go to 250, there's not the ability for them to keep, a certain amount of headroom in the EQ tank and still process at 400,000 gallons and not drop from a headroom perspective, which is just kind of like your delta between being too full in the EQ.
okay.
does anybody know, what the status of the archaeological dig is?
Still in progress. That's all.
Are there people out there actually doing?
I believe they're on site.
Oh, okay.
That's my understanding.
Is it do you know where it's located? Is it the whole site or is it just that one area towards the canal?
I think the focus was really up in this area.
I see.
And once they're done, is it presumed that that becomes available then, or gets permanently?
It depends on what they
Protect.
find.
Yeah, I think there is inkling that there could be potential fines that could prevent the use of that space, depending on how it unfolds. Just the preliminary thoughts.
So bringing the wastewater to this site has certainly major advantages as long as they put in a system that decreases the cost to the town. Since the operation costs are what your guys are gonna be paying, and I say you guys because I'm in
Right.
Wolf Point, I'm already paying them. But, you know, to get the information on this, AGS system, to get information on sludge handling and equalization, they've certainly got a great site for all of that. It's a matter of just getting the wastewater to it.
That's all planned out. I mean, it's
Yeah.
set up to where he knows exactly where it needs to get to. I mean, my understanding is there's already 2 pipes right here.
Yes, yeah, that's my understanding too.
2 pipes that
And it
one.
was- it
And what
was-
are those?
There's 2 very large force mains. One's in use, one's not.
So it's a matter of just getting your wastewater to that location.
Yeah.
Continuing it on existing pipe.
Yeah.
So we would actually, you'd be required to extend out Kings Highway, is that what you're?
Depends on, and this comes down to
Right,
depending on.
yeah.
So you have an existing flow agreement that talks about this discharge point and handshake point, which is here. So the original discussion was from that point this way or leaving Lewes was
Right.
gonna be in the county's purview to
Right.
pay for and coordinate and all that. Then the whole discussion of the ocean outfall, where now you become physical owner, a 1/3 owner of that, which then kind of changes the metric of costs. And that's where the devil's in the details, and really it comes down to whether or not you want to be involved in the ownership aspect, or you just want to be the wholesale customer, which is you send the flow, they treat the flow, they send you a bill.
And how is it actually approved?
What?
If we went with the county, who would actually approve that?
It would be in coordination with the state and the EPA. They would submit a permit, application to the state. And it would be reviewed in coordination with the EPA, is my understanding.
Is the county involved in it at all?
The county's the one that does it. The only thing
They're
we
the one
would,
that submitted it.
yeah,
Yeah.
the only thing that we
You
would be
grant it
involved
to
in
them.
would be the relinquishing of ours, which we don't even have one because they're still working on renewal. But you're talking about, to be able to do it, I mean, you're doing environmental impact study, soil borings under the ocean outfall scenario. And then you're gonna do like you'd have to source the location, do the environmental impact study, soil borings. Feasibility if there's land acquisition, state probably has to sign off depending on the trajectory of where you're piping it to.
I think that sounds like years,
Years.
years,
Yeah,
multiple years.
you're probably in permitting. I'm gonna say 5 to 7. In permitting, and then you probably have 2.5 years, 3 years of construction, depending on how crazy the design is at that plant.
Right.
I mean, if you're doing, and that gets back into like, if you're doing Aqua Narita, is there a, not a lead time, but you look at all these plants and they say about, like here, it says 2025. Is that deadline because the municipal is 2025, or is that because their technology won't be ready to be able to give to them till 2025? Is that a lead time issue for the municipal, or is it a lead time issue for Aqua Narita?
bet it's more than municipal.
I do
Yeah.
too,
I would say so.
because they're not inventing new technology, correct?
Yeah, but it's like if,
They're selling a particular product, which is that technology.
correct, and I just don't know if they keep that particular product on the shelf. Meaning any equipment that would be coming from Aqua Narita, I don't know if they just have it on the shelf and say, okay, here's Lewis's, here's Wolcott's, or if it's,
No, they don't have it on the shelf.
Yeah.
Because, you know, somebody's tank is configured differently than somebody else's tank.
Yeah.
But.
because the tank, is-
Shouldn't be a big deal.
no,
I'm sure that's municipal.
No, I was just looking at this
But-
list. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just looking at the list that we started with.
Yeah.
And I noticed that number 14 is the same location described differently as number 1.
Yeah,
So would appear that Rockford is building either a separate facility or expansion of number 1, and it will be under their name only. Is that possible? I don't know what that.
I think the number one is owned and operated by the company,
Right, as the demo.
and Four River Sewer Authority likes it and wants to build one as their municipal plant.
And you think that's,
That would be my guess is what's happening.
and you don't think would it be possibly at the same location as number 1 is?
No, I suspect number one is on the property of the factory.
Where they actually
That's-
manufacture the product?
Yeah, that's where they had their SBRs when I went there at least, and I wouldn't be surprised if they have a metal tank just sitting over in the corner as a show and tell. I'd be surprised if that's at the municipal authorities site.
Right.
Where it's existing sewage treatment. I may be wrong, but I'd be
Sure.
surprised if that's the case. Because when you go out there, they want to show you their manufacturing facility, and then they take you out and show you the tanks and that kind of stuff.
There's the best property in Lewes right there, John's house
who's,
on Gill's Neck. The Otis Smith family,
Oh, yeah,
which one's that one? Oh,
yeah,
that's all of them, all that on the right.
uh-huh.
And
There's
he used to own all of
subdivided.
it on the left.
yeah,
Sold it, including,
yeah.
Everywhere you see those concrete fences.
yeah,
Was there the original, estate? Yeah,
Basically. Well, I can tell you what I'd like to see. I'd like to see you go to Wolf Neck and they irrigate all the bloody water. And don't go to the ocean, please. I'd
And why
rather
do you
see
say
you go
that?
into the canal rather than the ocean.
why do you say that?
I just have the horrible, it just makes me feel terrible to think that they're gonna build an ocean outfall off water out. I'd rather see it reused in some way. And going to the canal is like the second best option. It's not high on my list either. And all that water ought to be reused. It's such a waste to see water.
Farming.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, if you pan out and show Wolf Neck area. There is. Lots of people who've got big irrigators out in that area. You go along the bike path, you see them. Not just Wolf Neck, but the land near it. And
can you pan out, folks? Please.
so. You can't go ahead and pan out a little bit, please. You look at all of these, these lands here. I'm sure they're very valuable, but they've been cropped for many years, and if a deal could be set with these people, certainly all of this is state-owned property that could be irrigated right off of Wolf Neck Road. It's-
Would there be a need for irrigation there, Mark?
Well, they're growing a crop.
It's farmed out there.
So it is
It's all-
being farmed
Yeah,
now.
it's being farmed.
You
You
just
could,
did-
in my opinion, it'd be helpful to go ahead and plant trees and irrigate into tree land, but
But if it's crop,
cropland, yeah, cropland as well.
Thank
The
you.
the thing I say that about the trees is because the big center pivots are a pain in the butt to operate for the operators. If you have a treed site, and I probably told you all this before, you get some nice weather in the wintertime. You push a button and you get rid of some water. You can't do that with the center pivots. You gotta go out and change all the oil in the wheels, and you know, it's a more extensive.
Right.
They work great for irrigating farmland, but in terms of recycling treated effluent. And then they've already got the storage there.
Not to be too silly, but if we went with the county and actually sent some of the water to our wastewater treatment plant to purify it for drinking water, is that something that would be possible?
That's a real extensive process to get it to drinking water. You've got reverse osmosis processes and everything else. They get extremely tough to manage and make regular. You know, things, wheels come off of those devices all the time, and it's a pain to go through reverse osmosis. It's not impossible.
But he's asking if you could use the current process, cut off the sewer input and start putting.
Turn it into a potable water treatment plant.
Yeah.
In other words, take the county's wastewater treatment plant and have some of it come to us and filter it through our plant.
The treated effluent.
The treated effluent.
Yeah.
Again, yeah,
Same thing.
you would have to go through reverse osmosis, I would think, before
Yeah.
the state would allow that.
You don't think the MBR could do it?
It makes awfully good water, but I think the state would, when it comes to potable supply, it would take extra cautions. You put it through reverse osmosis and then carbon filtration. Would be my guess, especially in these days of polychlorinated, PFAS.
That is a problem.
Yeah.
And that's another benefit of wooded cropland. You have a good opportunity of breaking down, you know, these constituents of concern, they're called. That in the leaf litter of a forest, there's a lot of different kinds of microorganisms that can work on a lot of organic chemistries.
Is there any value to putting it over in the in the state's land for the?
On the other side of the canal.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I don't think the state would want any part of it. I mean, they didn't, when I did the report on bringing their wastewater to the town of Lewes, I said, why not just irrigate it in all those trees, and they all did it.
Does the city have any land that we could irrigate into?
The water treatment plant. Put it right on.
Well, I
There's a
can't
full
answer that
circle.
question right, you know. You'd require a number of acres to be able to, right?
Yeah.
The only farm that's out
I
there
don't-
is the one that's out by Old New Road on the far right. Hercules. They do a crap load, pardon the expression, of irrigation. And they're pulling it right out of really close to where
The
the,
aquifer.
well, I would need worse than that,
No, the
where the salt area is.
Okay.
Ebenezer Branch in that area.
It's
Lingo's
just hunting property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's their
But it's-
private
but it's-
reserve
but it's
there.
farm.
Yeah, it's
But
the
it's
next, it'll be phase 2 of.
I
Right,
don't
the
think-
next subdivision.
I don't
One-
think.
Correct.
so.
Isn't that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but I don't think they'll, no, not
It's
this
behind the Tower Hill subdivision.
Yeah,
down Lynn
you
Road.
drive down Lynn Road to get to it.
2 houses on the right, hunting property on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why do you think that won't be phase 2, Tower Hill?
I don't think they have any desire to sell.
I don't think they'll.
Oh, really?
It's like 900 and something acres if you combine both parcels.
I don't know those folks, but
I've been to a party there once. I don't think they're gonna sell it. But they were pumping out a shitload of irrigation water.
and for crops that they're growing there,
Mhm.
what crop is it? Corn?
Corn, I'm sure soybeans rotated in as well.
I'm kind of surprised that they even need to irrigate that land, given how. Well.
Yeah.
How close it is to. Okay, now that's all the subdivision now.
No,
Mm-mm.
this is.
No, but that is,
Yeah, on the front,
yeah, and right there, oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry.
that's
Where's I thought New Road was,
new roads to the,
Down here.
yeah, right here, but
Maybe-
this is the Hercules farm.
Wow.
You can see the indication of the.
Yep.
Yeah, you can see where the
irrigators
circles
there.
are.
Yeah, yeah.
Pivots.
So that when you design
no, I don't.
irrigation, you,
Oh, wait a minute, I withdraw.
every 1 inch of wastewater on an acre is 27,154 gallons. And so in good soils, you get 2 inches a week. So
And the-
54,000,
That's not good
Oh.
soil.
Yeah.
that's the thing, and so.
That's why the well wasn't like feasible location because, and I'm gonna screw this word up. What is it? Transmissivity
Oh,
Yeah.
of that area is like
Yeah,
subpar.
yeah. So if you put too much on, it runs off.
Plus, the state was worried about chlorides.
Oh,
Is that because it has a lot of clay in that soil? What is
The
lenses.
hard
the
pan?
clay plays a big role in the absorption, but the chlorides is because of the influence of Canary Creek.
Who owns the other part of if you go across?
To the left,
Yeah.
and the property goes all the way to Coastal Highway.
Right. And you get to that off of that,
Yeah,
what is that street name? Old Landing Mill, Old Mill Road or whatever it is, right?
it's those two parcels.
So Townsend's to the west, I guess that is considered. And who's the owner of that Lynn property? Is it Lingo?
They're both Townsend.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, they're both Lingo. Well, Lingo and Townsend gets used in the same, but it's Townsend.
It's Townsend, right? I'll be very. I know that when Tower Hill was going through county approvals. It had not been disclosed to the planning department that in fact the hunting reserve was on the adjacent parcel. It was brought to the county's attention and they made note of that during the approval process. And there was supposed to be some requirements placed upon how the lots adjacent to that parcel, that is the lots in Tower Hill, would be either their setbacks or possibly the requirement of a berm, something to make it a more safe for residential applications. I don't know what the final solution was, but that was supposed to occur.
I think someone might have missed the memo.
Yeah.
There's
what
a
I figured,
danger
too.
sign.
Yeah, there's no trespassing.
Yeah, that counts, that stops those bullets.
Yeah, real
That's a
well,
great job.
real well.
You put a wastewater treatment plant right there.
Yeah,
Yep,
it's good
Yeah.
to me.
and the city owns that.
Where is that?
Right behind Canary Creek
Oh.
Community.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, right on New Road.
How much land is there?
15.
Wow,
Yeah.
There we go, problem solved.
yeah.
Been a good meeting.
And you were talking about, you asked about where spraying could be done.
No, that's where they put the plant.
Well, I was just gonna say, if it's not a plan, for spraying purposes,
No.
yeah.
Okay, so are we gonna meet again this year or are we gonna wait and take a holiday? Sprint during January. Anyone have any views?
I'd assume wait until January, if that's okay with everybody. Got some family coming.
Mhm.
I wonder if there was an opportunity to have a smaller conversation with Hans. Because now he's not technically gonna be at the game.
Yeah,
I wonder if you can give us more insights or thoughts. I don't know.
I like that idea a lot.
yeah,
Is it
you mean it
short
for
time?
our next meeting, invite him?
I would
I
just,
mean, maybe they've
maybe-
offered a
maybe with a smaller.
job to Paula. If they've offered Hans's job to Paula, or a Paula disciple. It'd be interesting.
So are you suggesting, Earl, that maybe
I just.
a couple of us could reach out to Hans and see?
I assume there's gonna be a meeting with Hans and company from a negotiation standpoint, right?
Yeah, there would be a continued discussion.
So I don't know if.
Is
if
that
there's an
scheduled?
opportunity-
No, I think the idea was the GHD presentation was supposed to be presented to the county, which is, what is that?
January 9th at 10 a.m.
Yeah. Barbara's got it down. And then that pretty much leads into the discussion of where do we go from here?
Except that the GHD costs on option one are silly.
The one that they're presenting on the 9th is for the ocean outfall option. GHD would. be
Just for
presenting-
option 3.
It's just that option, no other.
Right. Right, they're done with looking at option 1 and 2. They're just looking at a new option 3.
Yeah.
So.
And that's an informational presentation then on the,
Yes.
right, it's not.
Yeah,
no
it's
decision.
no,
Yeah.
it's just a it's just a presentation, GHD to county council. Which public meeting, you guys can attend. I plan to attend
Where does county council meet?
Georgetown.
So the county does have a vote in this process.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the county has the decision to move forward. It's whether or not the board's involved with that process or not. Which should be through an agreement. Which my guess is the county can say, we're moving forward with this. And the county's portion of the project is 3.5 million gallons. And then they could say, well, we'll build, a 5.25 million gallon plant if Lewes wants to come along, but it would be involved in whatever the.
Hans said that they were moving forward, whether we do anything or not, right?
Yes,
And we don't affect the size of what they do, is that correct? The
you know,
scale?
we do.
We do,
Yeah, we would.
right?
At least that's what we've been told. I don't know if they would move forward with a different sizing if we said we're not, it doesn't make feasible sense for us. I don't know if they would do a larger or smaller.
But it's not gonna change the size of the ocean outfall pipe.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's a fair statement,
Yeah.
depending on the size of the plant. Cause they just benefit from having the lagoon storage. I mean, that
Right.
in itself is ungodly.
Well,
So do we wanna meet a couple days after that presentation?
Oh, that's an idea.
that's good.
What day was the presentation?
The
The
9th, it's the second Tuesday of the month. 10 a.m. I think is what they're scheduled to have their presentation.
How about Thursday?
Yeah, how about Thursday?
Is that Thursday? the
Yeah.
10th?
1 o'clock, would we have conflicts?
To be the
Do-
11th,
do we
I
have-
think.
11th?
He got,
Yeah.
that just went again,
What does it say?
PCA.
And the meeting for the county on the 9th, well, of course, will be on YouTube, right, or, no,
I would think,
You
I'm
must
pretty sure it is. All right. Right, and
Reese's.
did you say 9 o'clock? today?
There's a few in here.
1, 9,
January, what day are you?
10 o'clock,
10 o'clock.
You only open.
I assume it's in the morning.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, because Thursday is January
So
11th.
I'm gonna alert myself.
Mine says,
Maybe
I think you're
before
on 2023 there. It's like,
And that.
we want to skip that up.
Hey, Austin,
Yeah.
excuse me for interrupting, the date of the 9th with the county is that a regular county commissioner meeting?
Yep.
So this is just one of many agenda items,
Yeah.
correct? Okay,
What time is the meeting again?
10 a.m. start.
so. Okay, so that-
Do we want to watch it from here and then talk about it after?
You have the ability to do so because they live stream.
You know what, that might be a great idea, especially if we could enter Q and questions during.
You
that.
you can't you can't submit them like via
First-
type. You gotta go on, you have to
Yeah,
say caller and you can talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
So that
can.
would be
Yeah.
a possibility.
Mhm.
I like that idea.
now, if we are all in the same room, we have to advertise.
No, I'm gone. I'm not.
But
gonna
if there are 5 of you,
Oh. we have
And
to
I don't
advertise
count.
it.
I think you do.
I never have
No,
before.
he's
Sharon.
ex officio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, that early in the morning, be coffee and donuts, Danishes would be, right, Sharon?
City's buying? Oh,
Yeah.
Wheeler and Dealer.
Leftover Christmas cookies.
We don't do leftovers.
If you attended, if you'd be here or not, or if you would go in person.
Right.
I know Tom's going in person.
I'll probably go first.
Yeah. So that would leave, even if you 4 showed up, it would still be, you would have 3 if you're not counting Tim as a member.
Really, don't count. And if you're gonna have people there in person, then it's possible to send messages to those people, the questions.
Yeah.
What day of the
you're
week?
doing
is
too
the
much,
ninth?
Tim.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Just a thought.
And
You
I
can.
like,
You can.
that's how it's done. Okay, so that's. So we're gonna plan to meet here, right? I'm gonna put that in my entry.
You're doing we're
Right.
talking about the 11th at 1. Are you talking about the Tuesday meeting?
So
Tuesday.
right now, I'm talking about the 9th, the Tuesday meeting, we're gonna meet in BPW
Yeah,
offices, okay?
and then we'll have a real meeting on the 11th.
The only thing I have is I have DMAC, which is 10 to 12, so I may be a little bit late, but it shouldn't be too late.
1:30 maybe.
Yeah.
So we're saying 11, on the 11th at 1:30.
Yeah.
At 1:30, son?
Almost a bit.
Hold on, Tim.
Yeah.
You know you got that schedule up and on.
I'm already booked 10 to 12 that,
Oh,
at least.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
This is 1:30.
yeah, right.
There's something wrong with this.
City council not paying you enough?
Don't get me started.
I believe they call that pro bono.
Uh,
Only
Pro
only if you
stupid.
have a real job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're calling this a contingent. Right?
Mhm.
Okay, what are these papers you need back?
Yeah,
No, you can keep them. Just don't share that top one.
The one that you can go online and find.
Like, right?
So we're saying 1 o'clock or 1:30.
1:30 on the 11th.
Okay.
And I will work on getting a contact for Wolcott and we have now a list of questions to ask them, right? So and to guide discussion and see about getting with you guys. Okay.